Recording in progress.
Well, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the May 2025 Board of Directors for Exeter Public Schools. To determine, we have a quorum for our meeting. SCAR Executive Director, Mr. Kep, to report attendance and guests.
Thank you so much. Chairman Bullock.
Present.
Vice Chair Newbern.
Present.
Ms. Booncat.
Present.
Noting that Secretary Wheat and Ms. Alvarado are both absent today, giving us 3 in-person board members for quorum. Also attending Ms. Herren.
Present.
Mr. Griffin.
Present.
Ms. Hannon.
Present.
Ms. Morales.
Present.
Mr. Morgan.
Present.
Quorum is met.
Great. So with that, we'll call the meeting to order and proceed with the agenda as has been prepared and provided. First act is the approval on the board meeting minutes from April 22nd. I will entertain motion from board member to act on these minutes.
I'll move to approve the minutes from the April board. Second.
All in favor? Terry. Next item is public comments. We have 2, I believe. The first one, public hearing for LCAP and budget input for 25-26 academic year. And with that, I'll ask Mr. Morgan if there are any persons who have requested to speak on that item.
Yes, we have 4 public comment members wish to speak. Members who wish to speak.
Mr. Morgan, can you confirm if they are here to speak on the LCAP and budget or if they're here to speak on another matter?
I cannot confirm that. I just got the notification that they signed up via the web portal. The physical forms weren't presented to me.
Okay. I can take notes in 2 places if that works for the board. Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. Good afternoon.
Mr. Morgan, who are you calling on first?
This looks like Rachel Tate.
Hello, Mr.
Victor, if you can unmute her, please.
Hi,
Ms.
can
Yes.
everyone hear me okay?
Yes, we can.
Yes.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for this opportunity. Hello, Board of Directors, administrators, parents, and the other people who are present here today. My name is Rachel Tate Enroth. My students know me as Miss Tate. I'm a 6th grade teacher at the EPS Middle School. This is my 2nd year here. Exterra has been a place of many firsts for me. My first middle school position, my first year teaching with a teaching credential, and right now, my first board meeting. But it's also been the first of a different kind. Today, it's my first time expressing concern for a contract that we are asked to sign in order to return to our positions next year. My purpose here is to make the board aware about teachers' concerns about a new section of our work agreement for the next year that includes an arbitration agreement, which asks us to sign away the constitutional right to a trial by a jury of our peers and removes our ability to compete with class action suits. While we have been given information laid on with this agreement and what it's supposed to cover, and I appreciate all of the efforts of Jean and other employees to address our concerns, this information has come late in the school year, preventing employees from having ample time to find alternative positions. Teachers and staff have avoided turning in the agreement on the original due date because of this section, and I would like the board to understand the possible gaps in contract renewal and possible issues with filling those positions. I know that there are some employees who have actually already signed that contract and returned it before the issues were noticed, and now feel as if they should be able to reconsider this information. I speak for myself, as well as a majority of the middle school teachers and additional staff members across the 3 sites, when I say that this information should allow the board to make decisions today about the future of Exterra with a broader picture now and make appropriate contract changes. We ask the board to reconsider the arbitration agreement. In the future, we also ask the board to reconsider when they are introducing these new contractual changes so the employees can have ample time to change their minds. Exterra has been a wonderful place for my first in teaching, and I hope that I'll be able to continue making even better firsts in the coming years together. And I truly hope that this won't be the first time I do not return to a position because of its contract. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Morgan, our next speaker.
That looks like Mr. Black. Is that your Black? Victor?
Hi, good afternoon. Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
All right. Hey, thank you, board, for allowing us to come in. As stakeholders in Xterra, you know, I want to kind of just say that I agree with what Ms. Tate has said, that we're trying to bring attention to something, and it was brought to my attention that it's important that we communicate with the board as teachers how we're feeling about what's happening. I've been with Xterra since February of 2021. I've signed about 4 contracts. I think this will be my 5th. And I already turned my contract in just because I support administration. I support the fullness of what Xterra is. But what I wanted to share is we had a meeting yesterday, and it was brought to my attention some of these facts, and it feels rushed. It feels that we didn't have time to really address the issue. And I know that they extended us a few days, but I want to share with the board that we're asking for more clarity. And I think Ms. Tate did a great job of explaining some of the things that concern us. So I'm just here as someone who has signed my contract with concerns and wanting more time to communicate what's going on in trust for our future position. And lastly, just it's important that we're given time to communicate about these things and have chances to learn more. So I understand that it's the end of the year, there are deadlines, but we need the board to support us as far as the people who have been here and who have the best intention for our school community. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Mr. Morgan, is there another speaker?
Yes. Next speaker will be Miss Sophia Pax. Victor?
Hello.
Yes. Hi, Ms. Pax.
Good afternoon, everyone. I just wanted to also go in with Miss Tate. I've also been here for a while. I've actually been here well over a decade. I started in 2013, and I love working at the school. There is a reason why I'm still here. I believe in the same things that the school does. However, I do feel that a lot of the times we are taking more reactive measures rather than proactive measures. And although we've been told that we want to go in a more proactive route, it does not always appear that way. Many times issues come up, and this is after the fact when there's just no transparency. And like Mr. Black said, we just need clarity and to have open communication between those higher up making decisions and those of us that are here on the foreground, working with the students, seeing all of the issues on day-to-day basis. So I just wanted to share my support in what has been going on, and also just let it be known that, it would be great if we could have more proactive measures, such as a conversation ahead of time if something's going to change and getting our input, as well as doing something with that input. Or if something's not being done, then letting us know clearly why that input was not worked with, or why it was not taken into consideration in some of the decisions. Lastly, I just want to ask if in the future we can have these meetings not during the school day so more teachers can participate, because I'm certain more teachers would be here to share things that, both the highlights and the areas of growth, if we were able to actually be part of it during a time that worked. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Can you state your name again?
Sophia Pax. It's legally Acosta, Acosta.
Thank you. Mr. Morgan, any other speakers?
Yes. The last speaker is myself, Norman Dana Morgan.
Your name again?
Okay, starting a timer here. Okay, much as everyone's already kind of stated, my name is Dana. I've been here for well over a decade as well. And as a public servant, we've been here with Xterra, myself, Pax, and a few others for, again, over a decade. And we are here to serve Xterra, the community, each other. We in IT are here to serve, the entire organization. Prior to that, I worked at Medicare as a public servant again, serving elderly, so on and so forth. My point in mentioning all this is much like in the discussion we had with our HR Ms. Jean, is I've never had to, as a public servant, sign anything that taken out of context says to waive your constitutional rights. That verbiage is very scary. It seems wrong, and it seems like it's going against anything we build here or want to fight against or whatever. Even though I know some of the underlying meaning for that or whatnot, it still seems like it goes against everything we teach the youth, teach people to do, which is letting lawyers kind of run things who don't always have everyone's best interest in mind. So again, I'm just expressing the same concerns. I don't want to go over it again because everyone's stated the same concerns so eloquently, but essentially to waive our constitutional rights is verbiage in this contract, this agreement that we were signing under duress, as it seems, if you chose to sign it. And I'll leave it at that.
Thank you, Mr. Morgan. With that, are there any, there are no other speakers who have signed up?
There are no more speakers.
Okay, thank you, everyone. Our next section is financials, and that first presenter is Mr. Griffin, who's here with us today from XSET. It's good to see you. And for
Nobody else signed up.
Okay.
So just to note for the record, there were no speakers for the public hearing on the 25-26 LCAP or the 25-26 budget as drafted and prepared for the board packet today.
Griffin, April financials. Yes, sir.
All right. Can everyone hear me? Okay.
It's a lot easier to hear you.
I'm used to starting that way on Zoom. All right. So today we have our April financials presented for the board's consideration. Our April presentation has attendance information through month 8. Month 8 is significant because that marks our period 2 attendance month. As of month 8, we had 352 students enrolled collectively at both schools at an average daily attendance rate across both schools of 93.4%, which is a little bit lower than, well, actually, it's slightly higher than our budget, 93.4 versus 94.3. I was mixing up the numbers there. So it's a slight drop in our ADA from what we originally planned on. Keep in mind from month 5 through month 8, we've had the Southern California wildfires and other things that could have impacted enrollment in that time. Nevertheless, we've maintained enrollment at 352. Looking at the income statement, our from the last presentation till now, our total revenue has changed slightly, and the biggest contributor there is timing of one-time funds associated with our state revenue. And I say timing because we didn't lose those funds. We're just planning to spend a little less of them this year in order to have access for them in the upcoming school year. So that's an important one. LCFF, however, that $27,000 lower, that's due to lower enrollment data. So I did want to just point out because that state revenue is tied to timing. It's not a revenue loss. On the expense side, really the only expense that we have been calling out and addressing as the largest change from the budget is the realization of the Gage facility expenditures, and that's totaling about $2.6 million in our operating expenses that we're not budgeted for this year. Our net income projected is just under a net loss of $2.5 million. However, when adding back those Gage facility costs, we would have had operating net income of about $142,000 across the organization. Looking at cash, we ended the month of April with $8 million, and we're projecting year-end cash of $5.6 million with a year-end receivable of $528,000. At the last board meeting, we projected year-end cash of 5.5, and it's been slowly increasing. I anticipate that to continue to slowly increase as we get closer to the end of the year. One of the main reasons why it would continue to increase is that I am assuming a very timely payment of vendor invoices, but our vendors don't typically bill us so early. So some of them bill a month, or in some cases 2 months in the lag. So I did want to point out cash because I still think that's a conservative year-end cash projection that we should continue to see increase as we get closer to year-end. Within the packet, I also have the individual income statements for both schools. I did want to point out just, the big things to take away. The main dashboard doesn't drill in on the individual schools enrollment information, so I think it's important for us to discuss that here. So at EPS 1, we had our maintained 232 students that we budgeted for enrollment. However, our attendance rate is 1.2 lower. It's from a 94.1% to 93%. And again, I believe that the main contributors there have to do with things that are outside of our control. However, we have maintained enrollment. I'm just going to hit those main topics unless board members want to drill down on something else. But also at EPS 2, we have had 120 students. We've maintained that. I think we had a couple more than budget in previous months, but as of right now, we have the 120 that we budgeted for. Our average daily attendance percentage through P2 came in at 94.2%, which is just slightly below the 94.4% that we budgeted for. Within the packet, we also have our notes, income statement, balance sheet, and check register. The income statement and the balance sheet and check register are a consolidated view showing the entire organization. Oh, this is very small on the screen. However, I do have the full check registers for you to review in your packet. And if there are any questions around any of the disbursements, I'd be happy to answer those questions now or later on if questions arise.
Mr. Griffin, I would also just add that a 1.4% decline in budgeted ADA is roughly, kind of back of the napkin math would be around $68,000 less revenue.
Can you say that again?
A 1.4% decline in ADA from budget would represent approximately across both schools combined $68,000 less revenue. So, each percent really plays a key role.
Is there approximate number for student that forecast for versus the two schools?
For just LCFF, the supplemental concentration, or all revenue funds?
Already.
Sure.
No, you don't have to figure out that later. It's just a KPI I was looking for in terms of our projections and the actuals for enrollment pan out, and the importance of that KPI for not only finalizing this year, but next year, the next 2 years, which are very critical for us.
Not counting one-time funds, but including federal and state planned revenues, it would be $20,233 per pupil for all other annual funding types for this year.
Do you have anything else, Mr. Griffin, to add to the April?
I have nothing else to add for the April presentation. Be happy to answer questions if there are any.
Any questions from board members, Mr. Griffin, and April members?
Not right now. Thank you.
In the motion.
Where's Kingdom?
Yes, yes, ma'am.
I move to approve or to receive the April financials.
Second.
Second, further discussion? None, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposition? Motion carries. Thank you, Mr. Griffin. And the next item is joint presentation with you, Mr. Kent, on progress on our next school year's budget, 25-26.
Yes, thank you so much, Chairman Bullock, members of the board. We are pleased to bring to you today our formal draft budget to seek feedback before the June adoption vote. And we want to begin with some updates coming from the governor's office on the May revise and those factors impacting revenues, which were some of the questions you guys were just asking. And how we think that's going to drive or impact our budget model. So as a reminder, we are, kind of at the midpoint of the budget process, even though we'll be wrapped within 30 days. And I really want to highlight the primary point that we do expect a more significant than usual September revise coming from the state legislature, including some legislation they're still considering around holding harmless for absences due to immigration activity and other kind of outstanding questions. But we did receive the governor's May revise as expected. And so I'll spend the next few slides highlighting that for all of you. Overall, big picture coming from the governor, there was about a $4 billion decline in Prop 98, in part incurring on the back of a deferral from June to July of 2026. So we would kind of refer to that as clever financing, right? And while the budget overall had significant changes to other pieces of the state's pie, the education piece of the pie was overall unchanged. That's the high level summary for you. But they are taking the rainy day fund balance to zero, but not asking the schools to adjust our internal cash reserve rainy day balances that we maintain. So going quickly through a couple of these slides, and then we'll land on a summary slide for all of you. The total for TK-12 programming, like I said, is majorly unchanged. It actually went up slightly and shifting some funds between the Prop 98 designation and what they're calling other funds, and adjusting their per pupil amount just slightly and relying more on some of the other funds, again, which I'll speak to, such as the ELOP program or the transitional kindergarten program and some new funding sources that they're adding. So this per pupil allocation of 18,839 would not be all funds. That would only be the LCFF with supplemental income situation. The COLA, we were bracing for worse. So a downward revision in the COLA from 2.43 to 2.3 is better than anticipated, in honesty. And this is where we're also wondering if we're going to see some adjustments in the September revise, to be fair. If we look at the ELOP program, significant increase in funding for the ELOP program. We already qualified for significant ELOP funding and will continue to do so. In terms of the discretionary block grant, this is the new money that I referred to over the last couple of meetings. It is a one-time fund, And the battle that is occurring in the legislature right now is to maintain discretion in this block grant, to enable and empower the schools to spend the money as needed, as opposed to having it become categorical or with, funding strings attached. So we'll be working with our partners to continue to advocate for that, and it's designed to help shore up against declining enrollment and ADA impacts as schools and districts make efforts to right size over the next couple of years. The literacy instruction funding is another area where they are adding significantly more funds. We already received $900,000 in literacy funding, and we will receive a small pot of funds to also provide the new dyslexia screener that you guys are approving later today. Some of these pieces do not apply to a K-8 district, such as the personal finance course development. However, it is interesting that they're inserting math into this literacy and math coaches model. We use combined coaching now, so that's good for us. And then the support for the new dyslexia and literacy screeners. In terms of teacher preparation and professional development, this, I would say, which was going to be new money, is most changed. Instead of providing $150 million through Prop 98 on 2 schools for teacher recruitment, they're shifting to a completely different model where they would provide stipends for intern student teachers of $10,000. And this is in response to concern coming from the teacher pipeline. If you go through a traditional certification program, you have to teach for an entire semester and pay tuition for that semester. And it makes it hard to then earn income or money for those college students while they're teaching full time on behalf of their class load. So I don't know that $10,000 solves this problem for a student teacher, but certainly it is better than nothing. We had 2 student teachers this spring semester who could certainly have benefited, I'm sure, from a stipend, but it didn't exist for them, unfortunately. So we will see if this helps fuel the overall pipeline for new upcoming teachers. So in summary, the state is anticipating a $24 billion swing. So shifting from a 12 billion surplus to a 12 billion shortfall. But they're not doing that on the backs of education, which is most notable. They're really doing it on the backs of Medi-Cal, the state Medicaid program. And the governor is citing the impacts of the fires, the massive changes to Medicaid, and then the tariffs anticipated impacts. And on Medicaid, I want to name that while it doesn't impact our budget, it impacts our families. Last year, the state took a revolutionary approach to provide insurance to undocumented adults in the state of California. And 12 months later, the legislature realized that their analysis on the cost of that program was grossly understated. And in this May revise, the governor is proposing to repeal that or revoke that medical coverage. So we cannot say, of course, because we do not keep records of who's documented or undocumented, but certainly we can assume that this could impact some of our parents, specifically because it's referring to adults. So I do want to name that. We are looking at the baseline per pupil funding of $18,671, not including all other funds, and we do receive significant allocation of supplemental and concentration, so our number does go up from there. And this is overall about $4.3 billion less than the budget provided in the 23-24 school year. So we are seeing a trend line decline for education funding continuing into next year. It maintains and in many ways expands TK, ELOP, and universal meals, all three of which we do utilize and rely on. Slight decline in the COLA, continuing to protect that discretionary block grant, and then some of the other changes that we discussed. So if we look at our budget draft that we're bringing to you today, what I do want to highlight here is that you'll see total expenditures of 5.7 noted here, and state revenue of 7. Something's not quite adding up here. I see it's 8.7, sorry, and state revenue of 7.4. Apologies for the typo on the spreadsheet there. So we are at a reliance of 1.3 million one-time funds to balance the budget. This number has significantly improved over the last 3 years, and it's moving in the right direction, but we still have work to do. So if you look at the bottom line, reliance on one-time funds, that 1.3 million would be the number that we need to continue to shrink within the next 2 budget cycles, if not within the 26-27 budget. So how are we and where are we, spending this 9 million or so as that rounds up? Predominantly, it continues to be on people, right, is the biggest piece of the pie, but I wanted to highlight for you a few notable items. Our SELPA and oversight fees continue to go up, and there is legislation, very harmful legislation being proposed in Sacramento right now, which would significantly increase these line items. And so CCSA is working hard with all of their lobbyists to try to defeat that legislation in the Capitol, because it would significantly change oversight fees. This does not even include the 21% increase for our Prop 39 rentals that we already discussed. It's just the ongoing fee rates for participating in our SELPA, and then the mandatory oversight fees that we pay to LAUSD to be under their oversight process as our authorizer. In terms of where we also see large contracts or large expenses, and I wanted to highlight these because they are billed mostly to the home office as an expense when we look at those consultant services, but successful conversations with XED to maintain our current rate of $187,500, no fee increase for next year. We also had successful conversations with NWEA MAC around supporting us on fees and a shift from Paycom to Paychex, which would bring us down about 20,000. So just trying to eliminate some of those operating costs as much as possible. When we look at the overall budget model from last year to this year, this really highlights for us that we majorly spend our funds on the people that serve our students. But I have broken out the pie for you a little bit more here, really highlighting our after school program. And I want to again celebrate the reduction in SPED additional costs, down 2%. Overall from the total budget from last year to this year in terms of how much of the total budget. And then splitting out our ELOP days from the regular days for Prop 39, and then also highlighting the meal program, which is passed through, and our after school program, which is passed through. So in all, we received feedback, and will confirm from you after Ryan presents the budget model to you, that you would like to see a budget model that does not account for federal revenues. We can confirm that note from you today, and if there are any other revisions, adjustments, or models that you would like us to bring at the June meeting for your consideration, but I will turn it over to Mr. Griffin to go over the budget model in detail.
Thank you very much. Just going to share my screen again for everyone to see. This is the side-by-side comparison of current year and next year's budget draft for EPS 1. Things to point out, enrollment as of right now in our budget draft is at 229 students. And the average daily attendance rate that we currently have in our budget draft is 94%. And as you can see, that's slightly higher than the 24-25 school year. However, we're not anticipating life-altering events in our assumptions for next year with the wildfires and such. And so I did want to just point out that 88% to the board because that is a significant input when taking into account revenue for next year. Okay. The other thing that I'd like to point out is the UPP percentage that I currently have in the model is slightly lower than 24-25. It's quite possible that that could go up, but you know, incoming students are incoming, and I don't want to over anticipate the number of free and reduced students. So I did want to point those inputs out first. Looking at our budget model and also thinking of time, because Ms. Duquette went through some major inputs. I did want to point out that our LCFF funding is assumed to be at the 2.3% from the governor's May revise. However, our federal dollars that I have, I did want to point out that this does include all of our title sources, our title funds. As of right now, I believe that we will be receiving all of our title funds for 25-26. So I know in progress, we have some models that would assume no federal funding, but this one does still have federal funding. What we do not have is any one-time federal funding in this model. On the state side, the things to point out are that we still have about 661,000 in our other state revenue. Primarily, that's composed of our arts and music block grant dollars, as well as our literacy money and a few other sources. But I did want to point out that there are still one-time funds present for next year. Beyond next year, though, is a question mark. As you can see from 24-25 to 25-26, we are expecting less revenue than what we have been receiving. And primarily, the reason for that is because we have been spending down the one-time funds that we had been receiving on the front end, and there are less of those one-time funds going into 25-26. On the expense side, from the current year to next year, we are forecasting lower certificated salaries and slightly higher classified salaries. All in all, our salaries for the year are coming in a little bit lower than the current year salaries. I'm sorry if this is very high level. We can drill down and come back whenever someone has a question. Yeah, as far as going into the expenses, it's kind of hard to speak through all of them without seeing the details. However, as you can see, because one-time funds are going away, we are spending less. And we are having, we're projecting a lower spend for our supplies overall. And on the outsourced services, you see a big drop, and that's not a big drop that we shouldn't forget is mainly attributed to the Gage project, right? So we had those one-time Gage facility expenditures to you know, capture in the 24-25 school year. If you remove that, we're still going to be expecting lower operating services for next year. One of the reasons for that, as Mr. Kidd had said, is I believe we are projecting lower outsourced spend expense needs. So as of right now, we are forecasting net income for EPS 1 of $67,000. I went through that really fast. I did want to point out that we do not have any of the one-time discretionary block grant dollars in here at all yet. And tomorrow, School Services of California is having their workshop to dive into the governor's May revise. And that's when XSED typically provides me a macro to apply to the model so that we can move forward with the most information. That's not reflected in this model due to time. Year-end cash at Xterra Public Schools projected to be just under $2 million. I'm sorry, EPS 1, did I say 2? EPS 1 would be just under $2 million. Should I go to the next model? Next model, high level. We are anticipating 120 students again for next year for EPS 2. And one of the things that Mr. Kett was talking about was a $1.3 million reliance on one-time funds, right? How do we close that? The first thing that people sometimes think about is how do we close a gap like that? They think about cutting, but really what I think is most beneficial for us to think about is adding, and not adding expenses, but adding students, right? Because as we add students and increase enrollment, that gap closes. So I did want to point that out because 120 students for next year, it's very important that we at least hit that target, but it would be so much better to exceed that, right?
And I know the principal's goal, for example, is 131.
That's good to know. Okay.
This is a side issue. Is the air on?
No, I was gonna say.
We will work on that, sir.
Okay. ADA at EPS 2, we're projecting at a 94% rate, which is in line with what we've seen this year. Slightly lower, but we're trying to have a conservative estimate for next year. And our UPP at EPS 2 is very, very, very high. We're anticipating just slightly lower than the current year. But that's important because all of those factors go into the LCFF calculation. Okay. High level, we're not forecasting for any other federal one-time funding. We still have in our state revenue primarily the primary buckets that are filling that up are our arts and music block grant, as well as the literacy and reading specialist funding. One other thing to point out, neither of the budgets is currently expecting or anticipating any fundraising. However, we are working hard to try to identify some fundraising needs. On the expense side, you can see that we have slightly higher certificated salaries projected for next year. I believe that has to do with being fully staffed for next year and not having any openings, right? If we start the year with less staff, then we would see those savings in the form of outsourced substitute teachers or increased perhaps classified hours or other things.
Mr. Griffin, I would also name that there are many staff who serve both schools. The members of the cabinet at this table, for example. And in past years, we have done, kind of a 60-40 split across the board for staff on a per pupil basis. in part to balance the EPS one budget and in part to acknowledge that some duties occur irrespective of how many students are enrolled. Some staff are being funded at 50-50 for next year as opposed to 60-40. So you're also seeing some just slight internal adjustments, shifting some of the certificated salary expense from EPS 1 to EPS 2. And in part, that's because EPS 1 continues to be divided across 2 sites. And that expense disrupts the ability to have a healthy balanced budget in EPS 1.
Yeah, that's a very important point because we operate 2 schools spread out over 3 campuses. And because we're on that one extra campus, it's necessary for us to employ more adults for supervision, more adults for support and things like that. So that's definitely an important thing to remember. On the expense side, again, we're forecasting lower supply expenses and I believe lower consulting outsourced, I'm sorry, not consulting, operating services. The big, factor in the operating services is the not having the Cage project expenses. But overall, expenditures are being forecasted lower for next year, given that we have less one-time funds and less of a need to spend. Net income at EPS 2 is forecasted to be $45,000, 100% dependent on these enrollment projections. Okay. Year-end cash at EPS 2 is projected to be $1.7 million. I also have one for the support. And this one, it's kind of changed over the years, right? We still have our support expenses. However, as you can see, we really don't have any staff attributed to the support side because folks are being split across the campuses the way that they're actually working. And what that means is that we will have less of an expense to charge to the schools for the support services because they're already paying for them directly based on the needs of their individual schools. So I mean, as you can see here, there's really not a lot of activity on the home office side. We have I mean, our operating costs are about just under $300,000, and the main attributor there is consultants and rent to operate the building. And so the cost of these expenditures are split to the schools because it's an extra expense. I mean, another option would be to just have them each pay their own 60-40 split directly. Home office is projecting to end the year. Well, again, the home office is not meant to make any money. We're projecting a break-even budget and year-end cash of just under $75,000.
So in addition to the budget model not relying on federal revenues, is there any other considerations that the board would like Mr. Griffin and I to work on between now and June's meeting?
I think in with me with you and Jessica and Mr. Griffin, question that 3-year projection with a scenario of a facility, what that would mean to our budget, to the federal funds.
I think you also wanted to see a budget with a 0% COLA, but that may have been nailed out with the new request.
Right. And again, this budget will likely change even though we presented in June,
Mhm.
probably will be revised in September based on. Okay.
Yeah.
Do you have, I know it's not a part of the presentation, but do you have a back of the envelope projected cash for next year with this budget that's been shared across 3 entities?
I can quickly do it, 75. It's at about just under $5 million. And then, I'm sorry, one last thing. One of the points that was made was that there's also a consideration for a June deferral in 2026. That's the most manageable month, right? Because the expenditures are a lot less. And keep in mind, we also now have our line of credit to be able to float us through those deferral months. Because that LCFF deferral is not going to be $500,000. So I really think that that deferral is something that Xterra can navigate and manage.
And what will be the rate on the line of credit? Once that we go down.
Mm. Let me get right back to you on that.
Any other questions for Mr. Griffin and Mr. Kidd?
I'm sorry, Norman, I think you may have mentioned it, but I didn't catch it. Mentioning the new site exploration, is that factored into the budget, potential cost of that?
Not presently. That is one of the scenarios.
Yeah.
3.5%.
3.5, 9.5, thank you. 9.5 on the line of credit. However, we have such a strong cash flow position. It would take some catastrophic changes for us to need to rely on that line of credit. Yeah, with a deferral like that. Whereas other school districts who do not have such a healthy cash reserve would need to.
Yeah, that's why I asked for
Yeah.
Projected cash flow, cash balance. At the end of next year, it's like just over 5 months of cash reserves.
Our FICMAT kind of rating on our cash reserve is exceptional.
Right, thank you
Okay.
both.
Thank you. We can move quite expeditiously through these next 2 fiscal items. For your consideration today, Board, we have the conclusions of our RFP for the meal service program at Xterra that we would like to highlight here and have you award the outcome of the RFP process. So in our process, this is a very formal federally mandated process because of the size of the contract award. And we promoted and advertised across multiple state vendors. We received back bids from our current provider, Revolution Foods, as well as Unity Meals, who came in second place the last time we did an RFP, and Top Notch Catering. And the committee concluded their work right at the beginning of this month, and we have our recommendation for you here. Scoring in first place on the rubric that included the company's financial stability, their ability to provide the vended meals, longevity in the industry, K-12 experience, references, their ease of ordering, healthy food standards, taste and portion size, which is very important, as well as the presentation of the food itself. Does the food look enticing on the plate, right? Is this something that a student would want to eat? And cost. We did not change the rubric from the last RFP process to today, so that's an interesting continuity where Red Foods continues to score last, both last time and in this process. And Unity Meals barely beat out Top Notch Catering, slightly in taste and portion size, slightly in presentation and food, and then also just because of some deliverabilities around field trip coolers and a few nuances like that. In all, the committee was very pleased with Unity Meals and Top Notch. The committee was comprised of our food service staff, Ms. Alvarado, parents and students. They ate a lot of food on this day, sampled a lot of meals. Our after-school provider also participated in the process. So the committee is recommending that you grant the contract to Unity Meals, but is also finds that an award to Top Notch would be acceptable. If Ms. Alvarado were here, I believe she would make the case for Unity Meals. Overall, she was most impressed and pleased with the eatability and the enticability of the food, and feels that they are a very reliable partner.
Further discussion or questions from the board? That I'll entertain a motion.
I can move to approve the recommendation to the Unity Meals contract.
Will be second. Those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? Motion carried. Thank you.
Thank you.
Prop 39.
Similarly, we're just bringing for your formal approval our Prop 39 rental agreements. I want to highlight that all parties agree that we are still pending an alternative agreement to decline the one excessive classroom at our Breed Street location, which is paramount with the new per square footage rate, and the give back of much of the alleged shared use space that is not really usable as a shared space, but that they are trying to charge us for. And so with your approval today, that would be pending the approval of the alternate agreement from LAUSD as we've already proposed to them.
So we already went back to them with that, and we're.
Yes, they're just
expecting them to
working
approve
on the
it.
paperwork, so it's been accepted, but we don't have, the inked version in front of us, which is not unusual.
And the percentage increase over this current school year for.
21% per square foot. Yes.
So CCSA, there's no collective effort to bring this down. What's the, I mean, I can just.
They're currently still in court today, maybe not actually today, but today on the new Prop 39 policy overall. And that is actively at trial as we speak. And then this 21% increase is on the to-do list for the LA Coalition list.
Thank you.
Yes.
Right. This next.
With some sadness, I moved to. Second.
Second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion none, motion carried. Thank you. Thank you both. You're hard dedicated. It's a long process. And
I would like to commend the board. We are right back on track at 1 p.m. for governance.
we'll have the LCAP review.
Good afternoon, members of the board, Chairman Bullock. I am excited to present our draft previews of the EPS and EPS 2 LCAP for the next school year. So we have these 3 goals that are continued from last year, which focus on really tier 1 and teacher staffing and training through goal 1, and then goal 2 really hones in on supporting all students through MTSS, and then data collection, and then goal 3 really hones in on engaging families and school climate and culture. So for input, this has been a long process to make sure that we got input from all educational partners as we drafted the LCAP. So from parents and families, there's the Parent Advisory Council, as well as the English Learner Advisory Council, which also functions as our district English Learner Advisory Council and our English Learner PAC, as well as parent surveys. And then from staff and teachers, we have our panorama surveys. We have the needs assessment, faculty senate, town hall, and grade level leads. From our leadership team, the instructional leadership team has been working on the LCAP and providing input since December on different topics. From the SELPA, communication with Ms. Hannon regarding their recommendations. And then lastly, from students, their student survey, as well as school principals met with small groups of students together. So for goal number 1, I broke down each goal into the areas of effectiveness from last year, what actions are continuing, and then any proposed additions or changes. So for goal number 1, we saw increased scores on the local indicator rubric for implementation for science, math, and social studies. This really makes sense since math was a focus year last year and we're continuing that this year. And then with science, with the new rollout of the Twig science curriculum this school year, and the trainings aligned with that. Teacher stability has shown improvement. Since the return from the pandemic, we've seen a strong increase in teacher stability. Access to student devices, and increased school leader coaching of teachers through lesson plan feedback and check-ins has been another big area of strength and growth this year. Continuing, so we have similar pre-service and PD to this year. Small difference with the calendar in terms of the number of days prior to the start of the school year based on the way that August rolls out. Extended learning opportunities for students, purchasing of curriculum and purchasing of technology. Some proposed changes are increased frequency of the use of data through PDs, a focus on reading comprehension PDs, as well as writing professional learning communities, and integrated ELT are the focuses for PD this year, after gathering input from teachers and the instructional leadership team. And then focus on lesson plan feedback, shifting to student-centered and backwards planned lessons, especially focusing in on ELA and reading across content areas to maximize the time that students are spending reading. For goal number 2, the way that the LCAP is set up, part of how we evaluate effectiveness is based on test scores that happen before the implementation of the new plan, which is just an interesting system, the way that it works. So we have our DFS data from last spring that is on this year's LCAP. And then we also have our LP and LPAC from last school year, as well as chronic absenteeism. In addition, we have our internal verified data, as well as our internal calculations for LP this year, which are showing very positive growth in the direction that we are hoping to see, especially in ELA. For continuing, so assessment of learning, NWE math growth and reading fluency. The barriers to learning, we're focusing still on our reading and continuing that. SIPs and language and literacy, which is now expanding to K5 instead of just K3. And then attendance and the START protocol, and continuing that from this year as well, but starting it earlier. Some proposed changes. So we have the Amira Dyslexia Screener added, which will help provide our K2 teachers also with additional data on our students and their foundational reading. Eureka Affirm, we currently use Eureka Math as our math curriculum. Eureka Affirm is a data analysis platform that allows teachers to assign exit tickets, homework, or unit assessments, and then breaks down immediate student data based on question, based on student, based on class, based on standard, so that teachers can immediately have usable data to identify where their classrooms and their students need support. So that is a new addition for this school year for 1st through 8th grade. Imagine Learning Expeditionary Learning is, has a similar purpose behind it, which would allow for data to be collected by standard. It also has an online learning function within it as well that allows teachers to send out slide decks and assignments to students to be able to gather input such as exit tickets, et cetera, throughout the class. But it also has all of the tests embedded in there so that it then breaks it down by standard, which is really helpful for teachers because many questions have multiple standards or are spread out throughout the test. So it makes it very difficult for teachers other than hand calculating by standard where their class is at. This will give them that data right away as soon as the students are done. So for addressing barriers to learning, Conmigo was not the most effective program for our middle school students, and teachers really pushed for us as well as admin to push for a different program, and they're very excited about using iReady as their intervention program. MyPath ELA similar. 4th and 5th grade teachers have said that it's not the most effective program, and our K-3 teachers were really happy with our language and literacy program that we rolled out this year, so we're expanding that to K-5 and eliminating MyPath ELA. For after school intervention, we're planning on offering air reading before school or after school to families because we heard from the air reading team that our students were tired. We heard from staff and from parents that students were tired getting there so early. So this will hopefully expand it so that more families and more students can attend, and also that it won't hopefully interrupt sleep patterns for our students. And then Trapezium Math Clubs will be offered at the same time, and that is a math small group, fun, engaging, foundational skills practicing group that's differentiated by skills that students need to focus on. And then the last one is Imagine Learning small group tutoring for a very small number of newcomers, particularly at our middle school, to allow, typically we have between like 4 and 8 newcomers throughout the year that are in their first year or maybe their first and second year. It's a very small number of students and they're spread out between classes and grade levels. And this would allow a time for them to get the support that they need right away to have those foundational skills in English supported. And then it also has an online function where they can actually reach out for tutoring support in class as well to random tutors through their platform. And then we transitioned based on parent feedback Spirit Series to Readers Theater. Spirit Series has been used for the past 2 or 3 years for students to have a social studies based performance. We heard from parents at the advisory council that they wanted something more culturally relevant. And then we also heard from teachers that it impacted the master schedule for them during the 6 weeks that they did it, and it either pulled time from ELA or math. Okay. Yes, great. For 4th grade. Yes. Yes. So we're working with the All Stars program to be able to offer Readers Theater instead, which would help target our literacy focus and support that fluency while also providing more students in more grade levels the opportunity to have a theater-based experience. And they're very excited about that, so that's good. LPAC practice built into the school calendar and scope and sequence, and further parent education on the harms of chronic absenteeism and supportive interventions. And then for goal 3, for effectiveness, again, local indicators and surveys are documented within the LPAC. We're continuing SEL and PBIS programming. We're continuing the College Week, the Career Fairs, the Spirit Weeks, as well as our parent input on decision-making committees. Parent University is also continuing, but we're planning to reduce the number of workshops because it was, I believe, 22 or 24 sessions this school year offered twice each, and so it was a very large amount. And we would like to focus on other parent involvement and engagement opportunities, for example, classroom room parents, to have parents involved in the classroom and in instruction and less of a workshop model. So the Parent University will continue, but fewer. And then student-led conferences as well will be continuing. Some proposed changes, we heard from parents that they would really like to encourage a love of literacy campaign K-5 to really increase students' interest and excitement about reading. Relaunch of the Broom Parents program, expansion of the Parent Volunteer Handbook and Parent Volunteer Training. And then teacher and staff PD was started this year on the importance of a parent engagement and building connections. It started through ILT with our school leaders receiving training from Dr. Mohammed. And now it's shifted into teachers as well. And so now next year we're hoping to continue that. And that concludes my preview for the podcast. Are there any questions?
I have some quick questions. Who, the principals lead the parent university?
It's everybody depending on the topic. We all signed up and took turns.
Got it, okay. And then same, who leads after school interventions?
So
That
it's
depends.
through All Stars, but then it's also partnered with the school in terms of the infrastructure. So this year, All Stars at the middle school co-ran the ear reading program before school because they offer All Stars, but then we also offered ear reading, so it was a collaborative effort. And then we also had Xterra teachers supporting those classrooms as their reading was happening. So we envision that happening as well after school next year, where we're supporting the All Stars program and kids are duly enrolled. And then we're also using our own staff to make sure that it's the most optimal learning environment for our students during that intervention time.
Thank
Any
you.
other questions? Thank you for the great preview.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The next item is the approved curriculum for 25-26.
Yes, so this is me again. So for the adopted curriculum, this is just documenting all of the curriculum that we currently have in place and asking for board approval. There are no new curriculum adoptions this year, which I think teachers and staff are very happy about having stability and continuity of the program. But so for ELA, continuing the use of expeditionary learning and also using SIPS, which supports with the foundational piece. For English learner development, ELT. For mathematics, Eureka Math. For science, Twig Science. For social studies, teacher grade span involved units supported by expeditionary learning for TK4, and then 5 through 8 using TCI. And then SEL would continue to be Lucid.
I submit to resolution for the curriculum adoption for 25-26.
My second.
Second, any further questions? Not all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
No opposition. Motion carried. And thank you again.
Thank
Thank you.
The next item is consent agenda. And there are 3 items. Board meeting calendar for the next school year. Revised board policy and negotiation letter. Unless any board member desires to take one of these items out for discussion, I'll entertain a motion to approve the consent.
I did have one question. I just didn't, I went crazy. I didn't see them.
Yeah, that's
It's linked on the agenda, apologies. It maintains the same frequency pattern as this year
Okay.
of the 3rd Tuesday of the month,
Oh, sorry.
essentially.
That's what we got.
This is a compliance item where it has to be adopted annually, but you still reserve the right to make
That's what I
any
thought.
meeting changes that you would like
We
to.
just want to do it.
Mhm.
That's right. Okay, great. Thank you. I did it. Yeah, thank you. Sorry.
I move to approve the consent agenda.
second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Aye. Carried.
Thank you.
Thank you. Now we have the advisory team updates. And if, in the updates, can you give a timeline? I know there's probably a couple of team meetings that have to meet again before our.
Certainly.
And it'll be good for the public to know our game
Absolutely.
plan and what the off-ramp is and the big picture.
Certainly. Ms. Newburn, do you want to start the team 1 update?
Sure. Do you want me to talk about that timeline or you're gonna do that at the end?
I can do that at the end of the
Okay.
slide.
Okay, sure. All right, team one has continued to meet, working on the mission and vision, statements, and I think really has a strong, consensus among the group of the phrasing that is captured in these two statements. Specifically, having our students be students that thrive and that are trailblazers, and we kind of defined what we see that as being. Grounded in academic excellence, equipped to lead with confidence and purpose, and resilient in the face of challenges. Our vision statement is more forward-facing. Xterra will be the school of choice in the East LA of Will Heights, empowering students to prepare for and shape their futures. So what we're working on right now is developing the core values of Xterra, or revising and updating those. And then we'll be working on at least a subset will be working on the profile of the graduate, so that these can be actionable for the team.
Yeah, so the timeline for this would be to formally adopt the revised mission and vision at the June regular board meeting. And then the board would have some working time during the retreat to give feedback and input on the drafted core values and profile of a graduate for larger consideration and input at the June board retreat. Team
I think
two.
that's an accomplishment. Discussion of vision.
Yes.
All of that, I've been involved, it is the sticking point.
Yeah.
The wordsmithing and.
For how much the group was on the same page, it was a challenge. So, but we're moving through it.
Yeah, well said.
And I'll defer to you, Ms. Kay, since I wasn't present.
Sure. Team two is really in the middle of a few major components. We have launched our donor platform, Give Butter. It is live, and anybody can donate today. The Give Butter platform for both the Art Walk and in general. The board has also drafted and is bringing to the June retreat the board member expectations guideline to help with the retreat training and norming around board member expectations. And then the board is midway or partially through the efforts to expand the size of the board. The parent delegate seat is ready to bring to the June meeting. Ms. Alvarado is terming out of that position. She has confirmed she would love to accept an appointment to a general board member seat, so that would bring the board to 6. We have contacted explicitly through both Sobel's group and the Boyle Heights Chamber of Commerce with a recruiting flyer for local members of our community who might want to serve on the board, to bring candidates back to the board for consideration and have at least one, if not more, meetings scheduled through the summer to try to achieve our goal. The goal was to add at least 2 board members, and we're 50% of the way there with at least one good lead, if not more, towards that other effort. Where team 2 still has a little bit more work to do is around the approach and the messaging for the fundraising campaigns to both corporate and other donors or assets that can be tapped into, and in terms of that effort to increase the revenue side of the formula that Mr. Griffin was speaking to before. Anything else you would add to that, Mr. Bullock or Mr. Griffin, who also serves on team 2?
No, just that I'm logged into Give Butter right now, and I see that we have raised $115 so far. So hopefully that snowballs.
We have a soft commitment from Canes as of today to donate at least 500 to the Art Walk. So Canes, chicken. Canes.
Okay.
That's not their full legal name.
The
Raising
restaurant.
Cane.
That's the one that just opened in my.
Oh, see.
Will, at the board meeting in June, will we review like the way that we're gonna be using that and what?
The board member expectations or
No,
the
sorry, the
fundraising?
fundraising, like, I'm thinking there's probably like key fundraising points in the year that we're gonna
Yeah,
focus on.
great point.
Can we review that in June?
Yes,
And is Give Butter on the website? Cause it's not
Yeah.
it's clear.
I believe we have a
We have a,
ticket into
okay.
Edleo to add the donate button.
Okay, great.
that was gonna be my question, is if we could add that onto the
Yeah.
site. And I've been watching our Give Butter campaign currently for our event on the 7th. There's not a lot of movement, so
Yeah.
what are we doing to actively, promote and market this platform?
Yeah, that's a great question. I know that, the QR code is right on our flyer. We did share this information with some of our chamber partners. I think it's an important point to note that we should do a direct share, just solo messaging of this campaign to both our families and our broader community members as well. So I can collaborate with Ms. Salas on that since she programs most of those. Thank you so much. Okay, team 3, Ms. Bunka, do you want to get them started? Get the report started?
Major celebration, welcome Noemi.
Yes.
That was a big initiative for us and we're really excited for her to be on board and also to join our team. And along with that, we have some really huge initiatives for her to help move forward and move along. And the number one piece is that recruitment and enrollment coming up. And we saw that conversation with our financials. So we'll leave it at that. We have a future meeting coming up. So I'll leave it at that unless Mr. Kett would like to add something.
I would just highlight that we're looking to really, over the next few months, not necessarily by June, to create that 12-month enrollment flow and some longer vision, social media, strategic planning initiatives. But in terms of the team accomplishing the objectives that they set, they have checked all of those boxes. The recruitment plan is done. The new staff are onboarded. The parent ambassador team has been formed. So they're batting 1,000 on the objectives. And we just have a couple samples for you here of the improved posting quality since Ms. Morales has taken the helm on our social media as a celebration. Thank you.
Is the enrollment flow chart related to the process of enrollment or related to like how our data usually flows through the year?
It would be both the process of enrollment and also which strategies from our recruitment plan are being actualized across each month, since time is not equal in the enrollment cycle.
Yep.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. And now adjourn to closed session.
Thank you.
Yeah. Lori, they're moving into closed session, so we have to kick you out. You're not yet on the board. There'll just be a report out and adjournment afterwards. So now would be a good time for you to sneak away if you have other obligations.
Thank you for having me. Nice meeting all of you.
Thank you, Ryan, for being here today.
Welcome.
Yeah, thanks.
Maybe big screen.
I don't think we're gonna screen.
Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. Reporting out from the closed session, we did begin our annual performance evaluation of the executive director. Those discussions are ongoing, and we will continue them at our next board meeting in June, and then we will vote at that point on the we'll move in conjunction with our budget on her salary and complete our annual performance review. So as a result of this discussion, no decision, no vote is needed for the board. With that, I will entertain a motion to adjourn our meeting.
I move to adjourn our May meeting.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Meeting adjourned.